Okay. Another one is that mental illness is all in your mind. Is that
Define all in your mind first. I won't say a fairly common perception, which you see in a lot of sort of common media and whatnot, that mental illness. Well, let's just take depression for example. You can beat depression if you just cheer up.
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
And that's a very pernicious belief because it's very clear that a mental disorder is a disorder of the brain. It's a disorder of the nervous system and the body of processing. So you wouldn't say somebody who's had a heart attack, just make sure you keep thinking about making your heart beat faster. We don't need to give you medication for it. No, you say, take your calcium channel blocker. The same is true for a mental disorder, okay? You can't just say, just try harder to not be depressed and don't try, don't take any medication for it because it's not an organic dysfunction. That isn't true.
So now that takes us into our rapid fire myth belief question. So the first one is, each part of the tongue is for a different taste.
No.
No.
You want more rapid fire? Is that rapid enough for you?
Graduate students start liking coffee when they start graduate school. Is that just a me thing, or have you heard of other graduate students also getting into that caffeine kick? Does it just kind of like snap right in?
I don't drink coffee. I was a graduate student once, so that's clearly anecdote.
All right. I'll have to pass that on to some of my friends. Here's an interesting one. When we are inactive or asleep, the brain shuts down.
Not true. Clearly it plays some important role or roles. And also, not surprisingly, it involves changes in the activity patterns of large parts of the brain, pretty much, I would say everywhere, but practically everywhere. But it's not just that the whole brain becomes less active. Some parts of the brain are more active during sleep. You can't say that the whole brain is less active during sleep. Some parts are, some parts aren't. For example, parts of the hypothalamus, actually some parts of the cortex, that's partly why you dream, is because those areas are spontaneously active. That's what generates dreams, which are basically hallucinations. Other areas are less active. Areas associated with alertness, for example, are very inactive during sleep.
How about the size of the brain mattering for intelligence? Should I grow my brain bigger? No?
So of course, you first have to define intelligence for me again. It's a little more complicated than just saying small and big. It's partly how did it get small or how did it get big, just for example. If you look at a distribution of, say, in normal individuals, the ones with the larger brains aren't necessarily smarter than the ones with the smaller brain. Now, to be fair, there are pathological conditions where the brain is, pathologically shrunken. Things like microcephaly, for example. That is associated with retardation of various sorts. So, but in the sort of a general normal brain sense, if that were true, women would be on the average stupider than men because women on the average have smaller brains than men.
Right.
Partly because you have smaller body sizes.
How about memory training? Is that real? Is that common? I know that's kind of been coming up with like apps and stuff. Should we be trying to train our memory, train our brain?
Well, you can train practically any behavior. So you've probably seen apps where you do this task that engages attention. So you get a spatial attention task. You're detecting, dots moving in one direction and you get better at it, for example. It's supposed to manipulate your attention. One of the issues there is that you will get better at that task. So that task on the app, you will improve on. Your reaction time will improve or something. Does that generalize to other tasks? Does it make your attention while you're driving better, for example? There, the evidence is that's a much more difficult question. Okay, what sorts of tasks would generalize to, something meaningful like attention while you're driving. That's a much more difficult task. So the issue of generalization is an important one when thinking about these sorts of say brain training exercises. So if you work on your memory, there are all sorts of different processes or different cognitive training programs that can improve your memory for certainly specific things and probably your general memory. There's all kinds of systems for that have been developed over the last couple of thousand years actually, and they do work. So there's no doubt about that. You can train yourself to play the piano better. You can train yourself to do a lot of things. So clearly behavioral training works. You can improve on a task by behaviorally relevant training on it. Memory is just another brain task.
And so as our last question, this was a poll. We by the way, we gathered these questions from our neuroscience graduate students. One of the ones that they were really curious to ask you about was, in the future, I know we talked about transplants, but if it were to become possible, if a person were to have their head placed on another body, would it be called a body transplant or a brain transplant?
That's all semantics. I don't know. The brain and the body aren't separate. Okay, the brain and the body are an integrated, organismal unit, whatever you want to call it. So I wouldn't say that there wouldn't be that moving a brain from one body to another, it's going to have effects.
Duh.
It's not just going to be like, moving from one car to another as a driver. The body and the brain are integrated as a biological unit. So the body does matter. The body talks to the brain and influences it very strongly. The brain talks to the body. So I would not say that would have no effect on that. But
maybe we'll do a poll and see what the results are from other students. Team body, team brain. I don't know. I think I'm definitely team brain though, for sure.
Oh yeah, of course you are. You're a professional neuroscientist.
A little biased.
We're a little brain centric,
Just a little bit. All right. I mean, that's all I have in terms of our brain myths, brain beliefs for now. I think we'll just go ahead and wrap that up. I wanted to just thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, Dr. Hickmott. And so, yeah, thank you very much. That was fun. Thanks.
I had a good time doing it. Thanks for letting me come by and spout off my verbiage.
Definitely. We always welcome you.
Keep using your brain.